right, boys and girls, well, we are going to be continuing along in our Clearly Seen series. And as we saw last week, that God puts himself on display even in creation, right? We see the invisible God put on display in creation. And you know what, as I was thinking about that, it kind of got my creative juices going. And I put on my cool sunglasses because they help me to see things in a certain way. And I was just thinking, man, I want to create something. I want to make something. I want to make something special. So I came to a blank white poster board, and I went into the resource room, and I got some Sharpies, and well, you know what? I mean, I just went to town. I just started creating. I just started kind of going for it. And I mean, I'm not one to brag, but you know, there was stuff coming out of me that I had no idea it was there. It was creative. It was flowing, and I got this wonderful picture that I can't wait to share with you guys, because again, this just kind of flowed out. I mean, I put my glasses on, I got my Sharpies, and I was ready to go to town, and I can't wait for you guys to see it. In fact, hopefully you'll be able to send some comments on how, you know, what you think, because I love to hear what you guys think about certain things, but especially, you know, an artist like myself, you know, we love to kind of hear what people have to think about our artwork. So without any further ado, I'm going to show you my artwork. And again, this just, you know, take it for what it's worth, but this just kind of happened. It wasn't planned, just kind of happened. Boom! And I even put my name right on there, Pastor Brock, so people know who made that. I want people to know that that is my work, that I did it, and therefore I want all the credit and all the praise and all the glory for my artwork. So I'm just, you know, hope you guys appreciate that. But, you know, the thing about art is not everybody looks at art the same way. I mean, some people might look at that and say, well, Pastor Brock, that's just a bunch of lines drawn on there. And, you know, maybe you're right. You know, but this artwork tells you something about me, right? When you look at this, you can't help but say, that tells me something about this Pastor Brock guy. Now, the question you got to ask yourself, what does this artwork right here tell you about me? Well, if I take off my glasses, which distort everything, and I put on my glasses that really help me to see things clearly, I see that this artwork tells you that I am a lousy artist, that I have zero skills, that this is bad, that all I did was take a black Sharpie and start kind of making a few lines and jagged edges here and there, and that's about it. But this tells you something about me. But you know what? Creation tells us about God. Right? Creation is kind of God's artwork, his canvas, where he just kind of went at it, and he created, and he kind of made all of these different types of things. And so, again, when we look at creation, we have to step back and we have to ask ourselves, what does this tell us about God? Who is God? Who is this God who made all of these different types of things? Because, again, the Bible tells us in Genesis 1:1, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. This world that we live in, he created it. He made it. Now, why did he make this? Well, he made this so that his attributes, his power, his glory could be put on display. As we saw last week in Romans 1:20, it says, for since the creation of the world, his invisible attributes, his eternal power and divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood through what has been made, so that they are without display. You know, when God made this world, boys and girls, he could have made it any way that he chose to. He could have just made it in simple black and white, no color, no nothing, just black and white. I mean, he could have made things that way, right? He had the ability to determine how he was going to make it, but he didn't make it that way. No, God made everything with some colors and some different things, right? I mean, he brought the yellow flowers and the red flowers and the green trees and the blue ocean, all of these different colors God has brought together, all so that we can see his creation, all that we could see these invisible attributes of who God is are put on display in creation, boys and girls, and we are without excuse. But you know, God didn't just stop with the colors. No, God did a lot more. He also made varying shapes and sizes. I mean, there's some things that, you know, are just huge. You ever go out into the mountains and you just see this huge rock, right? And it's just ginormous, and you just go, wow, that's a big rock. And then you go to the beach and you see this little tiny grain of sand. You know, God made all that. That's all from God's hand. He made some animals really big and he made some animals really small. But you know, God didn't just stop there with the various sizes of animals and things along those lines. You know, God still made a lot of other different textures and the way that things feel. You know, there's some fruit that is kind of fuzzy like a peach, and then there's other fruits that are just smooth like an apple. There's some animals, again, that have feathers. There's some that have scales. God made all of these different types of textures. And again, we have to ask ourselves, what does this show us? What does this tell us? The fact that God made this world that we live in with so many different colors, so many different shapes, so many different sizes, so many different smells, so many different sounds. What does this tell us about this God? Well, boys and girls, creation tells us that this God, who, by the way, simply spoke all of these things into existence, this God is an amazing, powerful, creative God. Unlike Pastor Brock here with his artwork, right? God is a God that is creative, and his creation testifies. It tells us who he is. And you want to know what it tells us about him? Well, listen to what Psalm 19:1 mentions. It says, "The heavens are telling of the glory of God." So God's creation tells us about his glory. The heavens and everything else that God has created, for that matter, tells us about the greatness of God. They're helping us to understand that God is like nobody else. There's nobody like God. In fact, it's almost like creation is sitting there yelling at us. If we'll open our eyes and our ears, it's almost like creation is yelling at us, God is great. He's great. But a lot of times we're so busy, we're so preoccupied with other things that we don't really get a chance to hear that. But creation is telling us of the glory of God, and it's telling us that he is great. In Psalm 19:1 and 2, it says, "The heavens are telling of the glory of God, and their expanse is declaring the work of his hands. Day to day pours forth speech, and night to night reveals knowledge." Every day, boys and girls, God's creation is screaming at the top of the lungs, God is great. Every night, creation is screaming to us, God is great. And the question is, are you listening? Are you listening? It's there yelling at us, screaming at us, telling us about the greatness and the majesty and the wonder of God. Well, the psalmist goes on to write in verses 3 and 4, he says this, "There is no speech, nor are there words. Their voice is not heard. Their line has gone and out through all the earth, and their utterances to the end of the world." And you know, the NIV, the ESV, the King James Version, the New King James Version, all give what I would consider to be a better translation than the NAS. Then I think the NIV actually gives us the best one. The NIV says this. It says, "There is no speech or language where their voice is not heard. Their voice goes out into all the earth, their words to the ends of the world." And basically this means that, again, wherever we're at on this map, right, whatever continent we're looking at, whether it's Africa, the Antarctica, Asia, Australia, Europe, North America, South America, all of creation, all of the world, which God made, is screaming, God is great. And boys and girls, I want you to embrace that and understand that, because again, why did God make so many shapes, so many sizes, so many textures, so many smells? Well, he made them so that we can understand that he is a great God and we are without excuse. These things didn't just happen. Look at the diversity. Look at the sheer number of the differences of all of these things. They all come from a God who created and made them. And this God is glorious. He's great. He's magnificent. And creation helps us to understand that. And here's the thing. When we look at creation and we really listen, and we really take it in, we understand the greatness of God. Creation screams at the top of its lungs that God is great. But you know what? Jesus Christ confirms it. Jesus Christ confirms that God is great. In Jesus Christ, we see the Word became flesh and dwelt amongst us, and we saw his glory. Glory is of the only begotten from the Father, full of grace and truth, according to John 1:14. Just as creation also allows us to clearly see God's invisible attributes, Jesus Christ does exactly the same. Just like you can't look at the world without seeing God's glory, you can't look at Jesus Christ without seeing God's glory. His birth, his teachings, his miracles, his death, his resurrection, his ascension, they all testify to the fact that he is God, and this God is great. This God is great, and he loves you so much that Jesus Christ was willing to come into this world and suffer on our behalf, to do for you and me what we could not do on our own. Jesus Christ testifies to the glory and the greatness of God, that God was well pleased to crush Christ on our behalf so that we could be brought into God's family. Boys and girls, we have an amazing God. And while creation screams about the greatness of God, Jesus Christ testifies and assures us of the greatness of God. And this great God loves you and me, so much so that he was willing to send his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in him should not perish, but have eternal, everlasting life. The truth is, boys and girls, Jesus Christ is coming back, right? And we have to be ready for that. And we are all without excuse. We have to be ready for this great God to return and to call us to be at home with him forever in glory. It'd be my hope and my prayer that none of you would reject this great offer that is extended to whosoever believes. Whosoever believes can be brought into the family of this great God that creation screams and testifies of, but Jesus Christ validates. It'd be my hope and prayer that you would not reject that. Take care and God bless.